Hi everybody, I'm Maura Healey, your Attorney General, and today I'm in Fall River. It's great to be in Fall River, and we're here for an important reason. This is a public hearing on the Earned Sick Time Law, an important law that the voters passed last fall that's going to make sure that 1 million or so workers in this state have the protection that they need, that they have an ability to earn sick times so that if they need it, and they have to go and take care of a sick child, or if they have to take care of an elderly parent, or they themselves are sick, they will have had a way to accrue through work enough earned sick days to cover that. It's an important law. This is also a really important process, and what we've tried to do over the last several weeks is to hold a number of public hearings so that we can get input from stakeholders, employers, small businesses, workers, because the Attorney General's office is in the process of crafting regulations to implement this law. So we want to get this right. We want to make sure the regulations make sense so that they provide the workers with the protection that they need, but that they're also easy for employers and small businesses and businesses to follow. The law is slated to begin July 1st. That's the effective date. And we're working very hard right now to finish this regulation process and then to do as much outreach and education as we can about the law, because we don't want any employers to run afoul of it, but we realize that they're going to need the time to get up to speed and get the education on the law. Again, important law. We've heard so many stories from workers who stand to be positively impacted by this law. Workers at fast food chains who have had to make the decision about, do they go to work and leave a sick one at home, a sick child at home, or do they stay with their sick child but forego and risk foregoing a paycheck? People who are personal care assistants who care for people in their homes and have also had to make that difficult choice of deciding whether to go to work to care for that person even though they themselves may be sick. It's an important law, important protections for particularly vulnerable, many low-wage workers in this state. So I'm proud to support this law and that our office is working to enforce this law in a way that makes sense for both workers and businesses here in this state.
I'd like to call to order the Earned Sick Time Law Regulation public hearing in Fall River. Today is June 1st, 2015, and it is approximately 1:40. We will be starting the hearing and conducting it until approximately 2:15, taking a break at that point for about 15 minutes and then resuming. We're going to be calling people in the order that they arrived, with the exception of some of our elected officials who are being taken first. At the front of the, at the back of the room, you'll find materials, and if you have any problems or issues, Jackie and Dylan are at the back to help you. My name is Jocelyn Jones I'm the Deputy Chief of the Fair Labor Division in the Attorney General's office. To my far right is Paolo Melaranti on sound. Next to him is Shane Blundell from our Policy and Government Division, and to my immediate right, your Attorney General, Maura Healey.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is great to be in Fall River, I'll tell you that. You have a great city here. It's a great region with terrific tradition over the course of the last year and a half. I came to know this region in deeper ways. As some of you know, I grew up north of Boston. Don't hold that against me. I did really enjoy coming to know this region. Wonderful region with wonderful heritage, wonderful history. And when you think about the history of this region, and you think about the people that have come together, workers who came to these shores to seek a better life and better opportunity for their families and what was created here, it is incredibly powerful and incredibly moving. And you know, it's in that spirit that we gather here today. This is a law that was passed by the voters, Earned Sick Time, last fall. And there were at least a couple of results that I was happy with last election cycle. This was an important law that the voters passed, and it was important because for the first time there now stands to be up to 1 million workers in the state who are going to have access to a needed protection. For far too long they've had to make a choice about whether to go to work or forego a paycheck and stay home to care for a sick child, to care for an elderly parent or to care for themselves. And that's what this law is really about. The statute that the voters passed back last November also directed the Attorney General's office to implement this law, to enforce the law, and to develop regulations to actually make this law work. And so that's what this process has been about over the last several weeks. Back last April, end of April, April 24th, we published some initial draft regulations that were based on a lot of listening sessions and conversations we'd had with stakeholders, businesses, small businesses, workers' rights groups, and others impacted by this law. And the idea was to post draft regulations and then convene a series of public hearings across this state. We will have held a dozen or more in addition to the 25 listening sessions and meetings that we had leading up to the initial publication. Throughout the process, we've consulted with payroll companies and human resources professionals, and people have really shared their ideas about how to make this law work in a way that's intended. And that's our goal here today. So we really, really appreciate you all taking time from your schedules to come out and share with us your thoughts, because every day we're listening, and every day we think because of your help and because of help and input from people across the state, across a variety of sectors, our draft regulations get stronger. We recently announced, based on some of the listening that we've done, that it made sense to provide a safe harbor to any number of employers here in the state who are already providing their employees with some form of leave protection. And so we said that for those employers, we wanted to give them, since they are already doing the right thing by their employees, we wanted to give them additional time to get their policies up to date and to make their payroll systems match up in a way that allowed accounting for accrual of this time to work. And we're proud that this compromise was something supported both by the Associated Industries of Massachusetts and the Raise Up campaign that worked hard to successfully get this law through on the ballot. And that really is reflective of the spirit in which we engage in this process with all of you. We want to make sure that we have something in place that's workable, that makes sense, and that provides the protection that it needs, but that also accounts for some of what we've really heard of as problems or difficulties in terms of some potential ways to implement this. So we're mindful of this. But I am mindful of the fact, having listened at a few of these sessions already, the real difference this is going to make in people's lives. When you hear, from a young man who shows up at work with a 100-degree fever, serving food, it's not good for him, it's not good for the customers, it's not good for public health. When you hear from a mother who had to decide whether to stay home and care for both sick elderly mother at home and also her sick child at home, or go to work, else she forgo a paycheck, those are really difficult and hard choices, and they're not the kinds of choices that we feel that people should have to make, and indeed that's what the voters decided with passage of this law. But it is really important that when the rubber meets the road around implementation and the regulations, that we get things right and that we have taken account of all stakeholder concerns and the very real concerns expressed by the employer community. I know employers want to do right by their employees. We understand that. And we also understand, and I understand, that for many employers, operating businesses, nonprofit businesses as well, they're living right at the margins. And so we want to be thoughtful and careful about how we get this done. So again, I appreciate you coming forward here today. I also greatly appreciate the participation and the engagement we've had with so many of your elected officials. You all are terrifically represented in the legislature by your elected officials, and in particular I want to thank Senator Rodericks, from whom we'll hear shortly. I really appreciate his attention and his staff's attention on this issue as we've tried to work through some of these issues. So I want to thank you in particular, Senator Rodericks, for your work and leadership on this. I also want to thank Representative Fiola, Representative Sylvia for their continued engagement across any number of fronts, and really look forward to continuing that partnership and dialogue with all of you. And certainly we have a couple of city councilors here, Councilor Costa Hanlon and Councilor Carrera, from whom I know we'll hear in just a little bit. But I think all of us in government join in this effort in the spirit of trying to do good and do right, and certainly listening and engaging directly with the people affected by the actions that we take is really, really important. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I do want to close by noting where I started, that at the end of the day, this is about dignity and fairness, respect for workers in the workplace. And those are Massachusetts values. I know that they're values of so many of us in this room. And we just want to work there to get that right in a way that works for all. So thank you, and with that, I'll turn the floor back over to Jocelyn.
Just a couple housekeeping matters before we have our Honorable Senator Rodrick join us for a few words. For those of you who have with you written testimony that you'd like to submit, there's a place to do so in the back. When you arrive on your way out, you can leave it there. For those of you who become inspired to testify during the course of the hearing, please feel free to sign up and do so. And for those of you who are inspired to submit testimony who hadn't otherwise thought about doing so, the email address to which to send such testimony is on a piece of paper as you exit the room out back. So with that, I also want to remind people that since this is an official public hearing for public records purposes, we ask that you speak clearly into the microphone as everything is being recorded. So with that, Senator Rodrick. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam General and members of your staff. For the record, I'm State Senator Michael Rodrick, and I want to start by expressing my gratitude for how much I appreciate you taking the time to be here today to listen to employers and employees. There are many questions about this very important law, and you expressed it right, Madam General, that the voters last November spoke loud and clear that they wanted to ensure that every worker in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has the right for paid time off to take care of themselves if they are sick or for a loved one. You know, it is now law. I was involved probably for years in the legislature, serving as, when I was in the House, as chairman of the Committee on Commerce and Labor and Workforce Development. Very involved in this issue in trying to work through the nuances of this bill, and it's very, very complicated. As you know, at the beginning of this session, I filed a very comprehensive piece of legislation, not throwing out the law, but making amendments to sections of the law that I thought could be problems for the implementation of the law. As I said then, if I had any intention of throwing away the law, it'd be one sentence. It would not be 15 pages. Since then, I've had many conversations with your staff. They've been tremendous, working with outside folks in the business community, in the labor community, and we've watched how you and your team have done an incredible job of listening to the concerns of the business community and implementing those concerns in your draft regulations. I could not be more happy. I could not be happier with your proposal for the safe harbor provision. As you also know, I tried a couple times to delay implementation of this till January 1st to ensure that employers who are doing the right thing, employers who are have every intention of doing the right thing, do not get hung up. This is Chapter 93 provisions. There's treble damages. Never, and as I've expressed many times, never have I been concerned about you and your team. I know you're focused on education and information and ensuring that it works right. I have a real concern about the private bar. And we've seen elsewhere in labor laws where it's not the Attorney General's office that brings suits against employers, but it's the private bar. And that still remains my concern. I have complete faith in you and your team. You have, I mean, and the proof is in the pudding. You've listened, you've incorporated concerns in your regulations, and in every way you could, as long as it fits inside the statute that the voters passed, you're making those accommodations. So I want to say thank you, and once again, just say how much I appreciate yourself, your entire team, for listening, for taking into concerns of employers. I know there are a number here that have legitimate concerns and questions of not, trying to avoid the law, but to ensure that they are complying within the law. And in many cases, it is employers that already have paid time off and sick time policy on the books that it's going to be most difficult for them to ensure that they comply with the new law. They're going to have to redo all their handbooks and their policy manuals. They're going to have to account for time and accrual of time in different ways. And we want to make sure that they've always done the right thing, that they're not going to get innocently punished for anything. So once again, I thank you for being here in the great city of Fall River, and I look forward to continuing working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, I really appreciate it. I know the team has really appreciated and benefited from conversations with you and with your staff on these issues. And you're absolutely right. Our job does not end on July 1st, folks. Our job continues. This is about outreach. This is about education. This is about working with and helping employers of all shapes and sizes get to where we need to be. And I make that commitment to you. This isn't just about we publish a reg and then wait to see what happens. Your Attorney General's office will continue to engage, and I would hope that people don't embark on frivolous or unnecessary lawsuits. This is about a spirit of the law, and this is about protecting people. And I would hope that everybody would exercise the kind of thoughtful discretion that I think the voters of the state are due. So thank you, and we'll continue to hear from you.
And I have full confidence in you and your team, so thank you. Thank you.
It seemed an apt time to note that we will have members of our staff here after the hearing to answer any and all questions that people have after the hearing. And as the Attorney General was saying, we will be doing so on a regular basis after today. So with that, Representative Fiola.
I didn't have a plan for full testimony. I just wanted to welcome you here as well. I don't want to take away from the time of both the employees and the employers here today. I just want to say this is democracy in action. This is our administrative process, our administrative law process in action. I couldn't be prouder to see it all come together. And I thank everyone for coming here today and sharing your ideas, your concerns, and your issues. Thank you to you, Madam Attorney General.
Thank you.
Representative Silva?
I'll echo that. Please look forward to hearing all these folks who have some great questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
City Councilor Correa?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Attorney General, everyone that's here. Thank you for being here. Just quick comments from myself. Just picked up the budget. This has nothing to do with you guys. Don't be afraid. It's the municipal budget. These are my notes here, just very briefly. So some background. I am a city councilor here in Fall River. I'm honored to serve this great community. But secondly, I also own a tech company here locally called Snow Owl. And I'm going to speak a little bit from the perspective of a tech company, which, obviously Massachusetts is ahead across the board in tech companies and entrepreneurship, which is awesome to see. And I think that other sectors, other industries can take some great tips from the tech sector. Tech sector is highly productive. They also have usually some of the most aggressive hours. We also have some of the greatest policies, though, regarding sick time, regarding time off, etc. So I think that speaks to the volume of productivity that happens with tech companies. Now, I also recognize that not every industry can adapt like a tech company. So I'm here advocating that the regulations are constructed in such a way that makes sense for industries throughout the entire state. I think it's really important that we recognize that there are companies that are struggling, that need the outreach. So I was happy to say, I mean, I did prepare some notes on that, but I was happy to hear that the Attorney General's office is going to be doing some great outreach, some great education. I really think that that's the most important piece of this entire puzzle. So that's really what I'm here advocating for. And that's really my comments. I'd be open to questions if you had any for me, but that's all.
What does Snow Hollow do?
Snow Hollow is it's an iPhone application, and it shows you everything happening. Actually, it works really well in Boston, so definitely check it out. SNOOWL. That's a nice little plug for the company, too.
We'll check it out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Taunton City Councilor Costa Hanlon, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have very brief notes, but I'm also would like to thank the Attorney General, her staff. I'd like to thank the City of Fall River, Mayor Sutter, and the representatives, and of course the Senator and the State Rep. I am here representing, I'm wearing two hats. I'm here as a public elected official. My city on November 4th voted overwhelmingly to pass question 4. It passed 59.47 to 40.53. We have 16 wards and precincts. Every single ward and precinct passed question 4. So I feel as an elected official, I would like to represent that to you, that the City of Taunton supported question 4 heavily. And they supported it for exactly the reasons the Attorney General outlined. It is very important that our workers get the respect that they're due, that they are not choosing between a paycheck and their own health, the health of a loved one. I'm also here to represent on my private, I wear a private sector hat, I'm an attorney, and I represent businesses. And I represent small businesses that are mostly mom and pop businesses. And I've heard a lot from my Chamber of Commerce. I've heard a lot from my clients. Thank you for the safe harbor. It was very important to them. To know that your office will have outreach was very important to them. I guess from the private sector standpoint, I heard the testimony of the senator, and I understand his concern about private lawsuits, but I will say that what I've seen in the court as a civil litigator is that I think the bar represents itself very well. I don't think we have an awful lot of frivolous lawsuits, and I also think that we have an excellent judiciary who stops those frivolous lawsuits pretty well in their tracks. That's what I see every day. I do think the 93A portion of this is very important, and I'm glad to know that it will be there. But I understand the senator's concerns. The safe harbor will be important for the people that I represent. Continued training will be important for the people that I represent. I will also take the opportunity tomorrow at the City Council to come in and express what I've seen here with your, to hand out, to distribute the handouts that we have here. So I also be a liaison to let my public know what's going on. But we greatly appreciate it. We do appreciate you coming to Southeastern Mass. And we look forward to working with you on this issue. But as the senator said, your work on this shows that you care about the balance, and the balance is very important. But at the end of the day, as an elected official, I have to represent that the City of Taunton very strongly was in favor of this question. And we're happy to see that it's moving forward. And I personally am happy to see that you are representing the business interests, that their voices are heard, as as Councilor Correa said. And we look forward to the full implementation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jaziel Correa has a second. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Joy Reyes.
Oh, no, I had got the name.
Okay. Carol spoke. Terrence Hart. Oh, Therese. Okay. Tareen. Yeah.
Hello, hi. My
My name is Tareen. I'm a student at UMass Dartmouth. I'm also a volunteer with the CAP CSJ in New Bedford. I'm also ward chairperson of my ward, Democratic ward in New Bedford. I'm here because I do have a story of not having sick time. The setting of the story is that I worked for a place called Maritime Terminal in New Bedford, which is on the waterfront. I worked there for 4 years. I worked there for 4 years without sick time. I worked there because in the end it was that I was not classified as full-time. I could work full-time every week, 40 plus hours a week, but because my classification was going to be and always would be part-time, I never, received sick time no matter what. The situation was that I got sick with the flu, and I was out on Monday, and knowing that I wasn't going to get paid for that Monday, I attempted to come to work on Tuesday. It was too much for me. I went home. I was out for the rest of the day on Tuesday and was out on Wednesday. And then when I called in, because I was still not feeling good on Thursday, I found out I no longer had a position. The funny part about it is that my boss was the one who gave me the flu, and she was able to take out a week and a half. Now like I said, I had 2.5 days technically that I was out of work and I was fired. But she had the sick time. She had the personal time that she can do. Not only that, her aunt was the boss, but nepotism at work, whatever. But anyways, she had that time. I didn't have that time. Not only was I worried about whether or not I can feed my children at the time, I was a student at Fisher College, and I had 5 kids. I have 3 of them in college now, so they understand what I'm going through. But bills that need to be paid, and to know that the frustration of knowing that those days I wasn't going to get paid for, but then to find out that not only was I not going to get paid for them, but now I no longer had a job. Nobody should have to worry about that, especially when they're working on 103 temperature, and they're trying to make sure that they take care of their kids at the same time, and try to make sure that they don't get sick. Because guess what? What's going to happen if I'm home sick and all of these kids get sick? I'm still going to have to be home with them. So that's something that no one should have to worry about it. But also, you have to think about it. Like I said, I'm a student at UMass. I'm working on my master's now in business administration. So I've done all the courses in, morale and what keeps an employee working for you. And one of them is that you know that you're important, that they care about your health, that you have stability, that if something happens to you, your job is going to be still there. That's morale right there. You'll work harder for somebody who's going to work hard for you. And that's all we're asking these employers to do, is work for us while we're working as hard as you. And if you can, show us with some of that, benefits, that you care about your employees as much as you care about your bottom line, I would really, that's what keeps me with an employer. So that's my story, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. And good luck in your studies to you and your kids. That's great.
Thanks. Linda May Pitsley.
Hi, my name is Linda May Pitsley. I wasn't sure what I was going to say when I came here today. I went to the Senate when it was the minimum wage thing, and it was my first meeting with, which I considered very important people. And this minimum wage process that was going on, I can remember as a child crying so much because my mother was sick and still had to go to work, and it didn't matter that she was the only one that could make me feel better. And my father had to work at the same time, so it was just those two and myself. And I grew up thinking that, in a way, I wasn't loved enough, because when I needed her, she couldn't be there for me. And then I became the adult, and I had been working since I was 13 years old. And wherever I could earn money, I earned money, and I would go. And I kind of learned from my mother that if you were sick, you went anyway, and you got sicker. And then I had my own children, and I realized how important it is when your child or a parent or a loved one is sick and you're the only one in the house that can take care of them, then you have to do it. If it means your job, it means your job. If you have to choose between your loved ones, your children, your parents, then there isn't a choice to be made. It's what you have to do. And I can remember going to my mother before she passed away to tell her that I finally understood why it happened as a child. And no parent, whether you are the owner or you are the worker, we all have priorities, and sometimes the priorities have to take over that paycheck and say, this has to be done. And that's the reason I'm here today, is just to confirm how important the sick time is to the people who don't have the money to start out with. We don't have the luxury of saying, well, I have money in the bank, I won't worry about it. You say, I have enough to get me through today. Tomorrow is another day. I feel like going with the wind. You know, I can't deal with anything else. I'm dealing with all I can. But this is where the heart is, and this is where it's not a choice for anybody, not the owner or not for the worker. But if we think together along the same lines, then we can make compromises. You know, I can go work and work when I'm better, more hours if you want to make it up. But if it comes a choice, then I have to do the right thing no matter what. And that's all I really had to say today. And I think I lost my shoe.
Thank you so much for sharing that very personal story, Linda May.
Rosario Cabrera.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rosario Cabrera. I'm from New Bedford and I'm a PCA. I've been working for SPCA for 5 years already, and this law is very important to PCAs all around because I'm sorry. As PCAs, as you know, we run with a lot of difficulties with no vacation pay, no sick pay. We really have no benefits. And this law, I am a mother of two. My son runs with a lot of problems with asthma, and I have a sick baby at home right now. She's 14, but she seems like she's 5 and she's sick. And I still have to go into work, because if I don't go into work, I don't get paid. And this law will benefit us so much. You know, my husband went through surgery, and he had to use his vacation time to be able to soothe payments at home because there's no sick pay. Where he works, they don't provide any kind of for periods of time in which they have to be out for sickness. So this law is going to be very important as to PCAs. We're working very hard as PCAs to be able to, you know, get some recognition. You know, a lot of us in this state of Massachusetts, I'm so nervous. I'm sorry. You know, I've heard like from the. We take care of human lives in our hands. And if I go into work sick, I get that person sick. So I have to take that hard decision to stay out of work. Because for me, taking 2 to 3 days off, it's not like my consumer going into the hospital and getting sick for about a month, because they're elderly and disabled. So this law, you know, and take consideration in which we are PCAs, and how is this going to work for us? But I'm very thankful that, you know, this law did pass. You know, as PCAs, we save the government a lot of money not putting these consumers into, you know, nursing homes, because it's typically more expensive. And they live at home with their dignity and the respect that, you know, they have. But who's going to take care of us? Thank you.
Thank you. Athena Noda.
Good afternoon. Attorney General, thank you so much for hosting us today. I am the Director of Human Resources at Homestead Senior Care, Athena Mata. I'm here today because we're very happy to implement this. We're always looking for, doing the best for our employees. And of course, we want to know, be aware of all the variables with regard to the law and make sure that we're implementing them correctly. So our question is in clarification of the documentation. We provide in-home care to seniors in southeastern Massachusetts. Our caregivers are working part-time. They don't work full-time. They're working part-time. They can work anywhere from 3 hours a week to 30 hours a week. It's very flexible, so some choose to work very part-time. With that said, with this documentation that is required or cannot be required until after 24 hours consecutively worked, is that after 24 hours as in a day, or after they've missed 24 hours, and like they work 3 hours today and 4 hours next week and another 5? When are we able to actually request documentation for why they were absent all that time?
It is after 24 hours of consecutive
their
missed
shift.
Work time.
Okay.
That's right. And we have received a number of comments on that. It's something that we are looking to see what we can do with that, because we understand there are different industries where that becomes an issue and could extend out over a long period of time.
Sure.
No, it's one of the things we're very much thinking about.
Okay. And then my second question, again with regards to documentation, earlier the young woman who just spoke to the fact that we don't want our caregivers obviously working with our seniors if they themselves are sick. If our caregiver happens to call us up and say that they hurt their arm, for example, and then they suddenly say, but tomorrow I'm fine to work, we also want to make sure that our caregivers are well enough to work and physically able to work. Can we require documentation saying that they are capable of fulfilling all duties with regard to the role? Because we don't want to put them in a situation where they could re-injure themselves or obviously harm their senior that they're working with.
Again, this is another question that we have received on a number of occasions. You should know that the laws that currently protect workers and protect time off for medical reasons or family medical reasons, like the Family Medical Leave Act, have certain requirements that are separate and different from those in the Earned Sick Time Law that may allow an employer to require fitness for duty, etc., as part of that law. And all of those laws, requirements, etc., for employees to provide documentation remain totally intact. So just wanted to make sure you know that. That with respect to asking for documentation to return to work, there are other public health sort of guidelines that need to be consulted along those lines, and it's something we're working on. So,
because that's actually more of our concern. We want to make sure our caregivers are well enough to work,
right.
for the sake of our clients and themselves.
Right. So that will be further addressed in the final regulations.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Don Blacker, Souza.
Thank you. That's Dawn Blake Souza.
Blake. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Attorney General, for coming here today. I came up with a group from Coalition for Social Justice from New Bedford. But I want to speak today very, very briefly. I'm a retired public school principal in New Bedford. I retired in 2005. But as a principal, you always try to stay involved with what's going on in public education. I just want to say that there were so many times when I had to have a student, a young child, sit in the nurse's office. We knew that the mother or the father brought the child to school that day because they had to go to work. And between my secretary and the nurse and myself, and sometimes another staff member, we had to show the compassion to that parent rather than call and saying, you've got to come take this child home. And we essentially became the child care worker that day. We couldn't go send the child back to the classroom because that would jeopardize the health of the other children in the classroom or the teacher. And so it was very difficult to see parents go through the pain of making that decision. Do I leave my child at home alone? Sometimes parents would try to make that decision, and fortunately they would decide to bring the child to school. So it was a difficult choice all the way around. So, and I also want to thank you for explaining the safe harbor provision, because sometimes we need that balanced view to see that, you know, sometimes a law, when it's implemented, it needs, other perspective has to be looked at. So I appreciate you giving that view today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more information about the Earned Sick Time Law and to get information about upcoming public hearings on this, as well as a frequently asked questions sheet, we have a lot of information there about the law and have people standing ready to answer your questions. Go to our website, www.mass.gov. That's www.mass.gov/AGO, and you'll see it right on our webpage. There's a lot of information there. Thanks so much.